Hello, my friends. Today we have to start with the fact that Trump made a series of statements. He said that during another phone call with Putin, he asked him not to retaliate against Ukraine for the attack on Russian air bases.
Forget about trade, right?
Yeah.
We'd say, let's go settle it. There's some additional fighting that's going to go on. You know, he attacked and they attacked pretty harshly. They went deep into Russia. And he actually told me, I made it very clear. He said, we have no choice but to attack based on that. And it's probably not going to be pretty. I don't like it. I said, don't do it. You shouldn't do it. You should stop it. But again, there's a lot of hatred. And, you know, I'm very proud of the fact that with India and Pakistan, I was able to stop that. And those are new.
But here, as we can see, Trump likely won't be able to stop anything, even though his campaign promises were loud and clear. And now Trump decided to make another high profile statement, this time about tough sanctions.
You've had enough. Go ahead.
Mr. President, so would you consider to put more sanctions on Russia? Because this discussion is going on now for weeks and months, and you tweeted about it once, but then nothing happens. So
Yeah, when I
what will you do?
when I see the moment when we're not going to make a deal, when this thing won't stop,
Is there a
at
deadline?
that moment, yeah, it's in my brain, the deadline. When I see the moment where it's not going to stop, and I'm sure you're going to do the same thing, will be very, very, very tough. And it could be on both countries, to be honest. You know, it takes two to tango. But we're going to be very tough, whether it's Russia or anybody else. We're going to be very tough.
Friends, does anyone still believe Trump can actually stop Putin with sanctions? Let me know in the comments. Likewise, I think everyone already knows that the Russians tried to carry out a retaliatory strike on Ukraine overnight, and some sources claimed they allegedly launched the Oreshnik. But once again, something went wrong. A failed launch. The Oreshnik fell near the border with Kazakhstan, as if someone jinxed it. Prominent Z propagandists claim there was a launch, but it failed. Meanwhile, bright flying objects were indeed observed in the sky over Kazakhstan and near the Kyrgyzstan border. If the posts and these videos are about the same thing, it can be assumed that the clumsy Russian rocket man launched the Oreshnik along the wrong trajectory. As is known, this shitty analog is launched by the Russians from the Kapustin Yar testing range in Astrakhan region on the border with Kazakhstan. Accordingly, here in west there are a couple of Russian regions and then Ukraine, and to the east Kazakhstan and further Kyrgyzstan. All in all, if this is really true, the Russians will in any case claim that there was no Oreshnik launch because they will never admit that they can't even aim it properly. Be sure to share your opinion in the comments. Now, let's move on to the frontline situation. Let's start immediately with Sumy region. Here, the Russians continue to gradually move forward. For now, their first goal is to reach the village of Khotyn. And as you can see, there is a small water obstacle here. Most likely, they will try to get there and then stop for now. After that, they will actively try to advance near the village of Yunakivka, which has already been stormed. Thus, the gray zone is seriously expanding and the activity is very high. There are no reports of new breakthroughs overnight, but the situation here is still developing very poorly, and the Russians have managed to capture quite a bit of territory in a short period of time. Ukrainian defenders from the area describe the situation as follows. Sumy direction. The settlement of Kindrativka is completely under Russian control. The Russians have conducted stabilization measures and are beginning preparations to advance toward Khotyn. Also, from the area of Andriivka and Oleksiivka, the Russians are starting to move south toward Pisarivka, Mala Korchakivka, and are expected to stop there to enter a forest area where heavy fighting is expected. Of course, we don't rule out that the Russians will try to bypass the forest and head toward Stetsivka. Don't assume that just because someone said they'll go no further than the forest, that is final. According to my data, they still have the strength for a further push. It will depend on us not to screw up the moment, because the Russians might flank us and we'll be waiting for them in the wrong place. On the eastern flank, the Russians have started fighting for Yablunivka, specifically for its northern part. Fierce battles are also ongoing for the northern part of Yunakivka, for the houses along the Luknya River. The eastern flank is holding firmer than the northern one, even though there are some setbacks, but not sharp ones. Why? Because from the north it's easier and closer to strike the city's logistics. In the Kharkiv direction, Shalin continues without offensive actions, and it seems that for now they lack the reserves for a full-scale offensive in this area, so things have quieted down here again. In Vovchansk, the fighting continues, and they are also assaulting the village of Tychem, but there have been no changes over the past 24 hours. In the Dvorichne direction, attacks near Kamyanka have been recorded again. Otherwise, there is no significant activity here for now, and the front line remains unchanged. In the Kupiansk direction, the front line hasn't changed over the past 24 hours either. No new attacks have been recorded at all, so the situation here has stabilized. In the Borova direction, attacks on Boguslavka are ongoing, along with continued shelling. However, activity here also remains minimal, and there are no changes along the front line. In the Liman direction, the Russians continue building on their recent gains, and today are pushing further in the area of Karpivka, assaulting Novy Mir, Druzhelubivka, and Zarichne. However, so far, there have been no changes along the front line in the past 24 hours. In the Siversk area, some bad news has emerged after attacks from the Serebryanka forest toward Yampil. Russian forces managed to advance in the forest and secure new positions. Their total progress now amounts to an additional 3 kilometers and 600 meters. Attacks also continue today on Bilohorivka and near Verkhnyokamensky. We're still waiting to see how the situation unfolds, but it's already clear that the Russians are doing everything possible to encircle Siversk and move forward from there. In the Chasiv Yar direction, the Russians are pushing toward the village of Markova and are shelling it. They are also assaulting Orikhovo-Vasilivka, Stupochki, and advancing through the fields toward Bila Hora. Attacks continue near Kurdyumivka, and the number of shelling remains very high. There have been no changes to the front line over the past 24 hours, but the situation remains extremely difficult. In the area of Klebenbyk reservoir, the Russians are assaulting Sherbynivka, advancing around Romanivka, storming Rusin Yar, and carrying out a large number of attacks. FPV drones are trying to control the entire area here, making any movement extremely dangerous. Because of this, holding the defense is becoming nearly impossible. But the Ukrainian forces are doing everything they can. So far, no changes to the front line have been recorded in the past 24 hours. In the Pokrovsk direction, assaults continue in the area of Malinivka. The Russians are also attacking Myrolubivka, Lysivka, Chunishine, Udachne, and Novosergiyevka. So far, there have been no changes to the front line in the past 24 hours, but the level of activity remains extremely high and the shelling doesn't stop. In the Novopavlivka direction, attacks are ongoing in the Kotlarivka area. The Russians are storming Gorikhove, Oleksiivka, and are trying hard to fully capture Odradne. But the front line remains unchanged over the past 24 hours. In the Velikonovosilka direction, the Russians are assaulting the villages of Vesele and Vilne Pole, pushing past Novosilka and attacking Novopil. However, despite high activity along the entire front line, they have been unable to advance and there have been no changes in the past 24 hours. In the Gulai Pole area, only shelling is observed with no offensive actions recorded, so the situation here has stabilized for now. In the Zaporizhia direction, shelling continues along the entire front line. FPV drones and guided aerial bombs are also actively used, but so far there are no reports of new assaults and there have been no changes along the front line. In the Kherson direction, the Russians are shelling the right bank, but no new assaults on the islands are taking place, and they still haven't been able to break through to the right bank. Meanwhile, Elon Musk, as soon as he practically left the White House, began stating that Trump's policies are leading the US to collapse.
America is also going bankrupt extremely quickly. And nobody seems to, everyone seems to be sort of whistling past the graveyard on this one. You know, the Defense Department budget is a very big budget, okay? It's $1 trillion a year, DoD, Intel, it's $1 trillion. And interest payments on the national debt just exceeded the Defense Department budget. They're over $1 trillion a year, just in interest, and rising. We're adding $1 trillion to our debt, which our kids and grandkids are going to have to pay somehow every 3 months, and then soon it's going to be every 2 months, and then every month, and then the only thing we'll be able to pay is interest. And if this it's just it's just like a person at scale that has racked up too much credit card debt, and this does not have a good ending. And so we have to reduce the spending.
Musk also claimed that Trump wouldn't have won the election without him, and Trump has already said he's disappointed with Musk. I helped him a lot. He knew the inner workings of the bill better than anyone sitting here. He had no problem with it. Suddenly, he had a problem when he learned we were going to cut EV subsidies, said Donald Trump. After the scandal, Tesla's shares fell, and Trump said that no one needs Tesla cars. Elon went crazy. He got exhausted. I asked him to leave. I took away his EV mandate that forced everyone to buy his unnecessary electric cars. He knew for months what I was going to do, and he just went crazy. Overall, friends, the scandal turned out to be very intense. Be sure to share your thoughts on this in the comments. And that's all from me. So please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.